introduce Sophia Howlett. We know her as a member of Rotary, but also as the president of SIT. And looking forward to an update from SIT about SIT. We know it's been really challenging for small schools, and so hopefully we can do as much to support SIT, and we look forward to hearing from Sophie.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ron, and thank you for asking me. I will say, President Carl, I did have an invocation for today as well. But what I figure I'll do is I had a nice little poem about autumn lined up for you all. But what I will do is I will share that to Marty, and then he can put it in the newsletter, and you can read it at your leisure. And I'm going to talk about SIT right now. So let me share my screen. And I'm sure you guys are all used to, okay, where is show all windows? No, I'm sorry, just hold on a second. And so unfortunately my screen is not showing me all the files that should be there. Hold on just a second. Here we go. All right. And make sure that we go into, okay, there we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, sorry for that. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing to get through this whole situation. What I thought I would do, because I don't want to sort of just give you sort of doom and gloom, you know, about small colleges. I really, at the same time as telling you that obviously this has been immensely challenging and continues to be immensely challenging for us. I also want to tell you about all the amazing things that my staff and faculty have been doing, because we should also be celebrating the ingenuity and team spirit of organizations like SIT at the time, as well as thinking about the financial implications. So what I decided to do was to break this down into, shall we say, a little diary of our year. And frankly, it also is a diary of the time since I last saw you, because as you can imagine, this has been a little all-consuming. So I also want to thank Ron very much for inviting me to speak today, because he's also brought me back to my lunch hour with you, and it's so great to see you all. And, you know, I'm going to make sure that this is a priority now. And you know, everything else is going to have to wait, because it's reminded me how great it is just to take a time out of my working week and just spend some time with some good friends and neighbors here in Brattleboro and the region. So let's go back to March. And March for us was Operation Get Our Students Home. If you all remember, in early March, the president decided to close down flights from Europe. We had 2 days notice, and then it was like a domino effect, one after the other. At that time in early March, we had 928 students, undergraduates and graduate students, in 36 countries on 50 programs. And I put in a little photo there. That's some of our kids being able to leave from Morocco. And I put that photo in there because Morocco shut down their border while students were trying to get on the plane, and they actually prevented them from getting on the plane. They were actually on the walkway to get onto the plane, and The decree came down from the king, and people were prevented from even getting into the door of the plane and sent back. So we did have several situations that were very orderly and easy, but we had also other situations where suddenly our kids and our faculty found themselves in lockdown with no notice whatsoever. And then we had to work with our colleagues and our neighbors and also the US government to try and get the kids home. To achieve this, we set up essentially a 24-hour in-house travel agency. We set up our own travel agency, and this involved people across the whole organization. And what we all did was we basically volunteered to provide in 3 to 4 hour stints to be on the line so that students and faculty and staff could call us and we could find the right tickets to go through the right places at a moment's notice. So we were doing it in the middle of the night, we were doing it all the way through. So I did my stint on the phone, as did most of our grad school faculty, as did our admissions team. Everybody was involved, and it was an extraordinary effort. And the result of that effort was every single student, except for one, was successfully repatriated. The one student who escaped us, we got her to the airport, we saw her through security, and then she decided, she'd obviously planned it beforehand, she got on another plane and went to the beach in her country. Instead of going on the plane we booked for her home. So that was the one student that got away from us. But it was a huge effort and really an extraordinary effort. And as you can imagine, involved a lot of moving parts. And I'm delighted to say that for this effort, we were the 2020 Innovation Award winners for Go Abroad, which a special award for innovation in crisis response. We really, really hope, by the way, it's the only time they ever give this award because nobody wants to go through that again. So March was astonishing and, as you can imagine, driven by crisis. But then what happens when we got them home? Well, 920 undergraduate students. Within 10 days, we managed to get them online and all studying. We also set up hardship funds. We set up special relationships with all our partner schools to support students being able to get home, to be able to get online, and also to go through the issue of digital equity, which is so important, as you all know, when students are trying to study from home. And of course, many of them didn't even necessarily have a home to go to at that point. So we were also providing hardship funding for people to find somewhere to live and for food once they got home. So this is a happy group of students. This is IHP, as you can see, food security program, all getting online with their faculty member. And they were able to continue having classes from all over the world. Our faculty in 56 different countries just got online with them. As you can imagine, immensely challenging trying to organize classes from 13 hours time difference, but we did it. And everybody was immensely flexible, including the students. So that really was dominated our April. May, we had to think about adapting the grad school. We had, as you know, relaunched the grad school years ago. You know that we went through massive changes there. We completely changed up our model and we tailored back our programs so that we were only offering at that time in year one, a few low residency masters, hybrid degrees, where they did some residency in the summer with us, and then most of it was online. So the idea was that over 3 years, we would build back and we would build bigger, so that we would have more degrees, more flexible approaches, this entirely new format for the master's degree that we call the global master's, which is full-time, and every master's degree covers at least 3 different countries, so that students study in 3 countries over a 12-month period to get their master's degree. And we've been gradually rolling these things out over the 3 years. So this was the year when we were supposed to be fully done and have all those new degrees in place, and budgetarily would be at that point breaking even. which when you consider that 3 years ago we were at a $2.9 million deficit on the grad school, as you can imagine, is a huge team effort for everybody. So I am delighted to tell you that despite everything and the changes that we had to make to the grad school this summer to get it up and running, we are still on financial track. And in fact, we will be in the positive with our grad school. So the thing that was really sort of weighing like an albatross around our necks 3 years ago is actually now really paid off in terms of the effort that everybody's put into transforming it. We now have 5 local residency, low residency masters, 6 full-time masters. Our first doctorate is already advertised, and we hope to have it offer, hope to have the first students come in June. And our contact certificate program in conflict mediation has been totally revived in terms of its international interest. Now, obviously, this all required a lot of changes over the summer, and some of the things that we planned to do, we couldn't do. We moved our low residency degrees, master's degrees, entirely online so that students didn't have to come to Vermont in May, June. We didn't think it was a good idea at that time. And we have had to defer the start of some of our global master's degrees. I'm very pleased to say, though, that at least one of them launched on time, and we have 8 graduate students in Iceland right now studying on our climate change masters. So despite everything, we were able to start running some of the programs. We're hoping some more will start in the spring. And we've had to defer 2 of the new programs, unfortunately, till next fall. So this has had an impact on the grad school, but despite everything, the new model has proved very, very strong. The graduate school is now providing a more reliable income than study abroad, ironically, given the present situation. So, well, the good news is it tells everybody this was so much the right decision to back our grad school and to make sure that we revivify in that way. So when we made the changes originally to the grad school, we had, I think it was 6 master's degrees running. So by next fall, we will have 11 master's degrees and our first doctoral program, fingers crossed. So that is a real turnaround, and as I said, financially on track. And as you can see at the top, that is, we now have launched our new graduate website, and you'll see, if you take a look, the new language that we use. The original global campus, programs grounded in experiential training. This is SIT. And alongside that, in May, we also, as you probably are all aware, Peace Corps had to bring all of their Peace Corps volunteers home unexpectedly and before the end of their studies. We decided this was a great opportunity to revivify our relationship with the Peace Corps. And as you know, SIT World Learning was very much born out of that relationship. And so we were the first people to reach out to the Peace Corps, and we offered a special scholarship, which is still on offer for all those who've been impacted coming home this spring. And right now we're also working with the Peace Corps to support new programming for those incoming alumni too, so that we don't forget about them. In June, we then needed to sit back and say, look guys, study abroad is not going to be working the way that we hoped it was going to be working. Of course, back in March and April, we had thought, well, if we can just weather this out during the summer. But then it became clearer that this was going to go into the fall, and we realized that we were going to have to make some major changes. Just to give you a sense of where what in terms of our income, where we have been at. We bring in about $48.5 million in revenue a year. About 3 to 5 of that is around our grad school. So you can see that the grad school is a small slice of our pie. The rest of it is all study abroad. The fact is, if you can't send students abroad, then you can't have your programs. That meant we had 50 learning centers across the world, 36 different countries, approximately 400 local staff who we realized we were not going to be able to use during the fall. As you can imagine, this was incredibly challenging, and we had to pull together and think about how we could mothball, and I use the word advisedly, our centers and some of our core administration in order to make sure that we were ready to come back, and that we were also being respectful to our field officers and our employees all over the world. So what we decided to do is we looked at all of our different national environments. We applied for money to support our staff wherever we could. So for instance, just like in the US, there was the equivalent of PPP in places like South Africa, in Australia, in Argentina, in the Netherlands, in Switzerland. And you may not be aware of this, but about 6 years ago, World Learning SIT went through a massive push to make ourselves legal just about everywhere that we work, which really paid off in this environment, because we were able to go to the South African government, the Australian government, the Argentinian government, as well as the US government, and say, please, we need money to support our staff. So in some of our countries, we were able to put our staff on either part-time exempt or paid furlough through government programs. In other places, because of the legal environment, we needed to keep them on. So for instance, in Chile and Argentina, we have staff who are on 50% plus contract because the legal environment says that we need to keep them there even if we have work for them or not. And then in other countries, we have people fully on furlough. But our intention is to keep as many countries open as possible, and that maintains that's still our intention right now, because, you know, we're the type of organization, we're a non-for-profit higher education institution. We care about our staff and our faculty and our programs, and we want to be there for people when things change back. This requires that we lay out, obviously, expenses, but you know, we've been willing to do that so that we can keep places open as much in so far as we can. But unfortunately, it does mean that we do have staff and faculty out there who are not on full-time, and some of them are on unpaid leave. At the center in Vermont, our efforts was to try and really minimize reductions. But we realized that with fall and potentially moving into spring, this was back in June, we realized that what we probably needed to do was to reduce down some of our core operations. So we instituted furloughs where we could while the unemployment benefits were still at a good rate. We got the PPP from the federal government, and then we restructured some of our central administrative functions to in order to make them smaller with the possibility of growing them back. So the areas that were particularly affected were areas that really touched the students most. That was our academic senior staff. That was some of our admin staff who supported our academic senior staff, and our student affairs staff. So we reduced down those units. Ultimately, that led to 12 staff members that we needed to say goodbye to. Otherwise, we were able to manage the rest on furlough. If I give you a sense of, we knew back in June that we were probably facing losses for fall of at least revenue losses of more than 11 million. And we then with the expenses on top of that. So this was what we ended up with, and we decided otherwise we were going to focus on trying to bring in money in different ways and keep as many people going as possible. In July, therefore, we focused on innovation, and we were able to launch a number of new innovative projects. virtual internships, which have been immensely successful. We launched the World Languages Center to offer lesser taught languages online. We launched a J term, which is a January term, which we've never done before. We launched domestic study away programs, New Look comparative programs, and 9 new summer programs. And I'm delighted to say we were able to run a number of virtual internships and world languages this past summer, and we were able to roll them into fall. And right now we have 40 students on virtual programming this semester. So to give you a quick example of what that looked like, this has been one of our most successful virtual internship programs. These are our colleagues in Kenya, and they've really been providing leadership on trying to think about the pandemic in more global terms rather than simply the US space. And our AD there, who is in the center there, Steve Wandiga, he also works for the CDC, which is located in Kenya. It's the second biggest operation of the CDC in the world, the first being in Atlanta, Georgia. And Steve is also a Bill and Melinda Gates Fellow in the study of TB and malaria. So he's been a really prominent figure in our public health conversations. You'll see him pop up again in our webinar series that I'm going to talk about in a little second. In August, we had endings and beginnings. This is a screenshot from our graduation ceremony for our grad school students that we were able to hold online, our first ever virtual graduation ceremony. But it's something that we need to get more used to because we've got students all over the world now, and they're no longer just coming to Vermont. So this is something that we really wanted to integrate more into our programming anyway. And I'm delighted to tell you that we had 76 graduate students graduate this year. So for those who think, oh Lord, did grad school disappear? Absolutely not. And so coming back bigger and better. We also were able to start, as I told you earlier, our global master's degree in climate change back in Iceland. So full semester, there's a picture of one of the face-to-face programs we've actually been able to run. Those are our 8 kids arriving in Rwanda. We've been able to run 2 face-to-face programs this fall we considered safe and that students wanted to go on. One of them is Rwanda, Uganda, where they're studying human rights issues. And the other one is in Iceland, where they're studying climate change at the undergraduate level. So these are 8 very, very excited students who've just arrived at Kigali Airport. And as you can imagine, incredibly excited to be out of the US and back on their educational journeys. So some things change, but some things remain the same. We have 40 students on virtual programming, but we do still have 20 undergraduates on face-to-face programming and 8 graduate students overseas. And we're running an amazing set of webinars using our academic directors and program directors and faculty all across the world to keep SIT's visibility going. Please do join us. It's all on the website. This is just a quick example of our next one coming up. We're going to have our AD for Nepal, Dr. Suman Pant, and our AD, our academic director for the Netherlands, Dr. Jana Byers. And they're going to be talking as part of a series on perspectives from the global south on race, human trafficking, and modern slavery globally. And you'll see these every week. We've just had one from Dr. Steve Wandiga, who I was talking about earlier from Kenya, talking about the global pandemic and some of the science-based conversations going on around the management of the pandemic. And there will be such a series and as part of the critical conversation series at SIT every week with follow-up seminars and Q&A. So please get involved. It's free to everybody. And it's a way of also us giving back to all our students, partner schools, and friends across the world. And then finally, I just wanted to show you, this is our Iceland undergraduate students. They had to be in quarantine, obviously, in Reykjavik for 2 weeks, but they're just out of quarantine. And here they are able to go on excursion, their first excursion of the semester, COVID-free, pandemic-free, out-free, and enjoying an amazing experience with SIT. So I hope, just ending with that picture, our revenue maintains a problematic trajectory in the spring. We now estimate our losses this year could end up being around 45 million. We believe we've got the institution in shape to maintain itself. We are looking for additional help, though, to keep ourselves going as a contribution to, we think, the importance of globalization and the global conversation, both here locally, both in Vermont and across our country and world. But we believe also we've shown a commitment to being there during this crisis for everybody, and a commitment to our staff and faculty and to our students to keep us strong. And we will do whatever it takes to get through the situation and make sure that our students get to keep having these types of experiences and get opened up to the world. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sophia. Are there questions out there?
Ron Staley has a question.
Ron?
It's a brag as opposed to a question. I just want to brag for Sophie and everybody at SIT. They have been a great community partner in our school system. We have 150 of our high school students taking college credit courses through SIT. They offer 10 courses that our faculty work with our students. And you know, courses like mentoring and leadership, social justice, world languages, sociology, economics. They have been a great partner. So we're really pleased to partner with SIT, and we hope that financially they get the assistance that they deserve.
We love having your high schoolers, and we just want to have more, Ron. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bill.
Sophie, you said you had a 45 million deficit coming up this year. How can you possibly handle the cash flow needs?
Well, have you noticed, Bill, I haven't been at Rotary much recently. I mean, ironically, as I said, first of all, the good news is that we'd already dealt with the grad school. So we got that back on track. Otherwise, it would have been impossible, frankly. If we hadn't done what we did a few years ago, we wouldn't have been in the situation we are now. So first of all, we got rid of those deficits. But secondly, you know, over the past 2 years, we've actually been posting in the positive. We've managed to turn the whole thing around. Which is what's sort of also depressing about this, Bill, is that, you know, when you've worked so hard to bring everything back into the positive, and this was going to be our year to maybe go and spend a bit of extra money here, there, and everywhere. You know, so it was a kind of a real sort of a double blow from that point of view. So we already had some money that we'd been like stashing away back into our bank accounts, because we'd really, you know, we'd sort of, our bank accounts had gone down to almost zero because we were in deficit. We made the big changes. We would get back in the positive. We were putting money back into our bank account, so we had monies to hand. So we had that, and then we got the PPP. We applied to the Department of Education as part of the money, federal department, to get some money too. And unfortunately, the way they calculate the money was based on full-time FTE. I won't go into all the nuances. It meant that people who had students on campus full-time, they got the money and we didn't. So we actually had to go, we actually got, to give you a sense, Marlborough got, I think, about $350,000 and we got $14,000, even though we had 1,000 students overseas at the time, as you can see. So we went back to the Department of Education and we went to our senators, and huge shout out to our senators and Representative Welsh. Everybody mucked in for us, and we got the Department of Education to change, to launch the second part of the CARES Act for higher education. And on the second go round, we were able to get $500,000 for our students. So we got that. Then we got this government, we went to different governments all around the world. You can imagine here, Bill, we're a small operation, so you can imagine everybody just rolled up their sleeves and mucked in on this because it took a lot of work. And then we basically had to relieve ourselves of a lot of salary bills, which is why we had to use furloughs, but then we tried to get money from other sources so that we weren't leaving people with no money. But in some cases, we ended up having to sort of pay a percentage of that ourselves. So it's been interesting. And then also by doing new programs, like the World Languages Center and the virtual internships, etc. But still, you can't, there comes a point, right? You know, and I think we all know that. And I think what's really frustrating to me is that maybe there's a vision out there. I'm not, you know, I don't know where it is, but I think maybe there's a vision out there sometimes from some folks that think, well, a college that fails deserves to fail because somehow they haven't managed it right. Yeah. And we were not in a weak situation when we went into this. We were on an upward trajectory. But given our business model, which is getting kids on planes and taking them places, some things that you just can't get over. So, you know, that's also why we've been going and now talking to the state and looking for some more money there. Shake every tree, Bill, is the answer. And do everything you can.
Thank you, Sophie.
Carla.
Thank you. I realized that today the topic was an SIT update, but I also just wanted, I know many of you are familiar with the experiment in international living programs for high school students, which obviously this summer was not able to run their in-person programs, but it did run a very successful digital exchange. It's a program they've been running for a couple of, or maybe 3 or 4 years now, but it was a US kind of Middle East dialogue facilitated online, very similar to what we would do in person, but it too went digital, as well as other world learning programs in the youth exchange field. So, you know, I don't want to take away from the SIT update, but I know that there are other, you know, there's other things that are still happening and had to also modify, but did so successfly.
Yeah, that was amazing. It was so successful that it was partially funded by the Aspen Institute. And the Aspen Institute was so happy that I believe we're being asked to bid for some further type programs for the experiment. So that's really been hugely successful. I don't believe digital is going to replace kids wanting to go overseas. But what I really am happy about, and I think we're all very happy about, is that this has given us the opportunity to develop some digital platforms and digital-based programming, and that I want us to maintain that, and I think, Carla, you'd agree, and the experiment, because that also provides access to students who maybe can't afford what we normally do. And that is something we've been worrying about for a very long time, and again speaks back to our values. We want to be able to reach out to students at all income levels, you know, and we can't just give scholarships because it's not a bottomless pit of money, and especially not now, obviously. But what we can do is provide experiences for students in the best possible way that will allow all students to access, being able to talk and engage with people across the world. And I think we all agree that, especially at this time when everything's closed, it's so important to allow kids that opportunity.
Frank Rucker.
Hi, Sophie. I was so impressed you're still standing after such a hard run. That's really, really amazing. I was curious to know, are there folks still employees at the Brattleboro campus, or is it all virtual? Or and is your office there, or are you up there all alone? What's that look like, the campus?
I'm in my kitchen, and I'm hoping it's not too much of a mess now as I show you around. I'm in my kitchen on Main Street above Zephyr Art Design. So yeah, there were a few folks up on campus. I was actually up there this morning. Oh my God, it's gorgeous up there. The light up there right now, if you haven't had a chance to go and have a walk, go and have a walk up there. It's that late summer, early autumn vibe, feel, and we've got leaves and apples, and there are people who go backwards and forwards on campus, but mainly it's facilities and people who need to be around. Otherwise, we're the type of organization that, there's no reason, if we can communicate and engage with each other like we're doing here, then why would we make everybody go and sit in the same office? There's no reason to do that right now. So we have about 130 employees from the Brattleboro campus, and more are connected to Vermont base. And we're just making it work from wherever we are. And if we need to go into campus, we just fill out a health form before we go, and make sure everybody knows we're there. Everybody's been amazing. So we're not in a hurry right now. But everybody misses campus, I have to tell you. I was on a senior staff meeting when I got back this morning from campus, and I was telling them what I just told you. And you can see the look on everybody's faces, and they're like, yeah, they miss their colleagues. But they also just miss being on campus. And as you all know, it's one of the most beautiful spots anywhere.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, Sophie. It's 1 o'clock now, and we appreciate your presentation. I'm glad to hear that there's still quite a number of Brattleboro and Vermont employees. It sounds like it's been quite a challenge. It has been for many higher ed institutions. So I hope you can make as many meetings as possible, and we're a little break from your challenges week to week.
No, it's been great being back with you all. So yeah, hope to see you very soon. I'll have to eke out the brags week by week.
Okay, with that, we'll call a meeting and have a great day. Thank you.